The sun hung low in the sky, casting warm golden light across the endless desert. In the middle of the sand and dust, the crimson-tented bazaar stretched like a living, breathing city. Rows of red tents sway gently in the wind, their bright fabrics catching the sunlight and reflecting a soft, fiery glow. Merchants shouted about their goods, travelers from distant planets wandered curiously, and the air was thick with spices, sweet fruits, and the low hum of conversation in countless languages. It was a place where the unusual became ordinary, and everyone felt like they could belong, at least for a while. Among the crowds moved Ryan, a young human trader with a bright curiosity and a heart full of wonder. His sandy brown hair was tousled by the desert wind, and his eyes shone with the eagerness of someone ready to discover every secret the bazaar held. Ryan loved the vibrant chaos around him. He enjoyed watching the skilled merchants demonstrate strange gadgets, listening to travelers tell tales of distant worlds, and feeling the pulse of life that thrummed in the bazaar. This particular day, Ryan's focus was on a display of shimmering fabrics. Bright silks in blues, greens, and golds shimmered under the sunlight. He ran his fingers along them, imagining the garments they could become, or the trades he could make. The fabrics seemed almost magical, each one telling a story of the faraway places it came from. Then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed her. Myra moved gracefully among the tents, her silver hair catching the sun like spun starlight. Her eyes were calm but bright, reflecting colors from the bazaar as she examined the various goods. There was a quiet elegance about her, a gentle presence that stood out even amid the lively crowd. People noticed her, of course, but she moved as if the world around her didn't bother her. She was distant yet magnetic, and Ryan couldn't take his eyes off her. Ryan felt a strange flutter in his chest. He had seen many travelers, many merchants, many strangers, but none had captured his attention like Myra. Something about her made him curious, a feeling deeper than ordinary interest. He didn't know who she was, where she came from, or why she seemed so different, but he wanted to find out. As he watched, a sudden clatter of metal drew his attention away. A vendor's display of small mechanical birds had toppled, scattering pieces across the sand. Myra bent down to help, her movements careful and deliberate. Ryan took a deep breath and decided to step forward. "Do you need some help?" he asked, approaching her with a friendly smile. Myra looked up, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, Ryan thought the world stopped. She smiled softly, a quiet curve of her lips that seemed to make the noise of the bazaar fade into the background. "That would be helpful," she said, her voice calm but kind. Together, they gathered the scattered pieces of the mechanical birds. Ryan noticed the way Myra's hands moved, delicate yet precise, showing both care and skill. She thanked him once, twice, then paused to study one tiny bird, making a small adjustment so it could fly again. The bird fluttered its wings and chirped softly, almost like a miniature melody, and Myra's eyes sparkled with delight. "You have a good eye," Ryan said, impressed. "And you have good timing," she replied lightly, smiling again. For a moment, they simply stood there in the middle of the busy bazaar, watching the mechanical birds. The noise, the color, the movement, all of it seemed to fade into a soft blur. Ryan felt a strange sense of calm, as if the chaos around him no longer mattered. Myra seemed to feel it too. There was a quiet understanding in her gaze, a connection neither of them could explain yet. As she straightened and prepared to move on, Ryan felt a pang of hesitation. He wanted to speak, to ask her more about herself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he simply watched as she disappeared into the crowd, her silver hair catching the sunlight one last time before vanishing. Ryan stood there for a while, letting the bazaar's sounds fill the space around him. Yet his mind kept returning to Myra, the way she had smiled, the way her eyes had reflected the colors of the bazaar, the way she seemed both distant and close at the same time. In that moment, Ryan realized that his journey through the crimson-tinted bazaar had just become more than trading or exploration. Something new, something unexpected, had begun. And deep in his heart, he knew he would see her again. The next morning, the crimson-tinted bazaar came alive again with its usual symphony of sounds, merchants calling out their goods, laughter from children running between tents, and the occasional soft music from street performers. Ryan walked through the familiar paths, his eyes scanning the crowds, yet his thoughts kept returning to Myra. Her silver hair and quiet elegance had left an impression he could not shake. Ryan wasn't sure why, but he felt drawn to her, as if fate had pulled them toward each other. Today, he promised himself, he would find a way to speak to her again. He wandered past the spice stalls, their scents mingling in the warm air, past the jewelry tents sparkling in the sunlight, until he spotted a familiar shimmer of silver among the crimson canvas. Myra was examining a display of small glass figurines, bending slightly to inspect each one carefully. She didn't notice him at first, so Ryan took a slow, cautious step forward. His heart beat faster, and a warm sense of excitement spread through him. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady though his palms were slightly sweaty. Myra looked up, her eyes widening slightly, then softened as she recognized him. "Oh, it's you," she said, smiling lightly. "I did not expect to see you again so soon." "I could say the same," Ryan replied, smiling back. "I was hoping I might." There was a small pause, filled only by the gentle clinking of glass and distant chatter. Then Ryan noticed a tiny figurine shaped like a bird. He picked it up and held it out. "This one is beautiful," he said. "But I think it needs someone to appreciate it properly." Myra glanced at it and then at him, her eyes bright with curiosity. "I do appreciate it," she said softly, though her tone suggested amusement. "You seem to have an eye for special things." Ryan chuckled. "I like to notice details. Sometimes the smallest things tell the biggest stories." For the next hour, they walked through the bazaar together, though neither rushed. Ryan pointed out his favorite spots, a small stall selling glowing fruits that tasted of warmth and honey, a corner where mechanical birds danced and whistled, and a quiet tent where an old musician played soft melodies on a strange stringed instrument. Myra listened carefully, occasionally asking questions, her silver hair brushing lightly against her shoulder as she moved. "What is your home like?" Myra asked at one point, her voice soft and thoughtful. Ryan smiled, remembering the earth he had left behind. "It's full of mountains and rivers and green forests. The air smells like rain after the summer sun. People are always busy, but there's a quiet beauty if you take the time to look." Myra nodded slowly, her gaze distant as if picturing a world she had never seen. "I wish I could see that. My home is very different: cold, metallic cities, long nights, and skies full of lights that never dim. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live in a world like yours." Ryan felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "Maybe one day you will," he said gently. "And when that day comes, I could show you everything." Myra looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and quiet happiness. She said nothing for a moment, just walking beside him and taking in the sights and sounds of the bazaar. The moment felt calm yet charged with a gentle energy neither could explain. As the sun climbed higher, a sudden gust of wind scattered some loose papers from a nearby stall. Ryan quickly moved to catch them, and Myra laughed softly. "You are always so careful," she said. "I guess I like to help," Ryan replied, handing her one of the papers that had fluttered toward her. Their fingers brushed for a brief moment, sending a small spark of excitement through him. Myra's smile widened slightly. "You have a kind heart, Ryan. Most people would not stop to help a stranger." Ryan felt a warmth in his chest. "You are not a stranger to me anymore," he said, quietly, almost as if saying it out loud made it more real. For the rest of the morning, they continued to wander the bazaar, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet glances that said more than words ever could. The crowd moved around them, a blur of colors and sounds, but they felt as if they were in a small, peaceful world of their own. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Ryan and Myra reached a small fountain tucked in a quiet corner of the bazaar. Water sparkled in the sunlight, reflecting the crimson tents around them. They sat on the stone edge, sharing a simple snack Ryan had bought from a nearby vendor. In that gentle, fleeting moment, both of them realized something important: their meeting was not accidental. The bazaar, the crowd, and even the wind seemed to have brought them together for a reason. And in the quiet, shared smiles and conversations, a seed of something deeper had begun to grow, something neither of them fully understood, but both felt with a quiet certainty in their hearts. The next day, Ryan returned to the bazaar with a feeling of quiet excitement. The sun rose over the desert, turning the red tents into glowing streaks of light. The bazaar was already buzzing with life. Merchants arranged their goods carefully, children laughed as they chased small floating toys, and travelers haggled over shiny trinkets. Amidst this busy scene, Ryan's eyes were searching for the silver flash of hair he had come to recognize. He found Myra near a stall filled with small crystal orbs, each one reflecting the colors of the bazaar in miniature rainbows. She held one gently in her hand, her expression thoughtful. "Good morning," Ryan said, approaching her with a warm smile. Myra looked up and returned the smile, though it was softer this time. "Hello, Ryan. You come early." "I wanted to see you before the crowd got too thick," he admitted. "It's easier to enjoy the bazaar when it's quieter." Myra nodded, her eyes scanning the crystal orbs as if searching for a story hidden within each one. "You notice details that others often miss," she said quietly. "It is a rare skill." Ryan felt a spark of pride and amusement. "I like to notice things. They make the world feel alive." As they walked together through the winding paths of the bazaar, Myra seemed more relaxed than before. She asked Ryan questions about his home, his travels, and the people he had met. In return, Ryan asked her about her world, her culture, and her experiences. Myra's answers were careful but sincere, and Ryan could tell that beneath her calm exterior was someone thoughtful and intelligent, someone who saw the world in ways he could only imagine. Yet as the day passed, Ryan began to notice something different. Myra's eyes sometimes darted toward certain individuals, her expression tightening slightly, and she would occasionally glance around as if she were expecting someone or something. Finally, as they stopped by a quiet corner of the bazaar where a small stream of water ran through carved stone, Ryan decided to ask. "Myra," he said gently, "you seem careful. Like you're watching out for something. Is there something you're not telling me?" Myra hesitated. She looked down at the water, her reflection shimmering among the ripples. Then she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I have a task, Ryan. A responsibility that requires me to travel and observe. I am a messenger for my people. I carry knowledge and information between worlds." Ryan listened quietly, letting her words sink in. He did not interrupt. He could see the weight of her duty in her posture, in the careful way she moved. Yet, despite the seriousness of her words, he felt a sense of awe. Myra was not just someone he admired, she was someone with purpose, intelligence, and strength. "Your world must be very different from mine," Ryan said after a moment. "It must be hard, carrying such responsibility." Myra nodded, her silver hair catching the sunlight. "It is not easy. I must always remain cautious. I cannot trust everyone, because not everyone understands or accepts my presence. But meeting you, it feels different. I feel safe, even if only for a short time." Ryan's heart warmed. "I'm glad you feel that way," he said softly. "You are safe with me, Myra. I will not let anything harm you while you are here." A small, shy smile appeared on Myra's face, one that seemed to bridge the gap between caution and trust. For the first time, she allowed herself to relax fully in his presence. Together, they wandered deeper into the bazaar, exploring hidden corners that most visitors never found. Ryan showed her a small stall where glowing fruits were stacked like jewels. He picked up a bright orange one and handed it to her. "Try this. It tastes like sunlight," he said. Myra took it, her delicate fingers brushing his for a brief moment. She tasted the fruit and laughed softly. "You were right. It is bright, warm, and comforting." Next, they found a mechanical bird show, where tiny metallic birds performed loops and spins in the air. Myra watched them with wide, shining eyes, her hands clasped in delight. Ryan watched her, feeling a quiet joy that he had not expected. Her happiness was contagious, and he wanted to protect it, to be a part of it always. As the day ended, they returned to the quiet fountain. The sun was beginning to set, casting the bazaar in deep red and gold. Myra sat quietly, looking at the water. Ryan sat beside her, offering a silent presence. They did not speak for a while, letting the world around them slow down. In that moment, both of them understood something important. Despite the distance between their worlds, despite Myra's duties and the dangers she might face, they had found a connection that was real, gentle, and growing. And though neither could say what the future held, they knew that this meeting, this time together in the crimson-tented bazaar, was something to treasure. The following evening, the crimson-tented bazaar glowed under the soft, golden light of the setting sun. Shadows stretched long across the sand, and the air carried a gentle warmth that made the vibrant red tents appear almost alive. Ryan wandered through the familiar paths, hoping to find Myra again. His heart felt a quiet excitement. He was eager to see her, to talk, and to share small moments that had begun to feel important. He spotted her near a tent filled with delicate lanterns, each one painted in bright colors and adorned with tiny charms that jingled softly in the breeze. Myra's silver hair shimmered as she bent over a lantern, her eyes studying it carefully. She looked peaceful yet focused, a contrast to the bustle around them. "Hello, Myra," Ryan called softly. Myra looked up, her expression brightening when she saw him. "Hello, Ryan," she replied, her voice calm but warm. "I did not expect to see you again so soon." "I could not stay away," Ryan said with a small smile. "This bazaar feels different when you are here." Myra's eyes softened, and for a moment, the noise of the bazaar seemed to fade. They walked together, following the winding paths between the crimson tents, their steps slow and unhurried. Today, they did not need to rush. Today, the bazaar felt like their own private world. They reached a small, quiet fountain tucked between two large tents. Water trickled over smooth stones, creating a soft, rhythmic sound that blended with the distant chatter and laughter. Ryan sat on the stone edge, and Myra joined him. The sunlight reflected off the water, casting tiny dancing lights on their faces. Ryan looked at Myra, noticing the way her eyes seemed to catch the colors of the bazaar, as if she carried a little piece of its magic within her. "I like to watch the sunset," he said quietly. "It reminds me that no matter where we are, the day will always end beautifully." Myra glanced at him, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "It is beautiful," she agreed. "Even on my world, sunsets are not always easy to see. Sometimes they are hidden behind tall buildings or glowing lights. Here, the sky feels free." Ryan nodded. "I feel that too. Sometimes, we forget to notice the small things. But moments like this make everything worthwhile." Myra turned her gaze toward the fountain, watching the water ripple. "You have a way of noticing the little things," she said softly. "It is rare. Most people only see the surface of the world. You see deeper." Ryan felt warmth in his chest. "I think the world has many stories," he said. "Some are loud and easy to see. Others are quiet, waiting for someone to notice them. I want to notice everything that matters." Myra's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no careful distance between them. There was only understanding, a connection that neither could fully explain but both felt. She shifted slightly closer, and Ryan felt a gentle calm spread through him, as if her presence alone could ease every worry he had ever carried. For a while, they sat in silence, letting the sounds of the bazaar wash over them. Children laughed somewhere in the distance, merchants called out their last sales for the day, and the fountain gurgled softly between them. Yet in that moment, none of it mattered. It was just the two of them, sharing quiet space, sharing something unspoken but deeply felt. Ryan broke the silence gently. "Myra, I am glad you allowed me to walk with you today. You make this place feel brighter. You make the bazaar feel alive in a way I cannot explain." Myra's smile widened slightly. "I feel the same," she said. "I did not expect to meet someone who could understand, who could notice what is important. You make the noise of the world feel smaller." The sun dipped lower, turning the sky a deep red and gold. Shadows of the tents stretched long, and the colors of the bazaar seemed to glow even brighter. Ryan and Myra watched the light dance across the sand and water, their shoulders brushing lightly. In that shared silence, they both realized that something new had begun between them, a quiet understanding, a gentle trust, and a feeling that their meeting was not accidental. They could not yet name it, but they could feel its presence, strong and steady, like a gentle wind that guided them closer together. As the evening air cooled, they stood side by side, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the tents. Ryan offered Myra a soft smile, and she returned it, her eyes reflecting both the fading sun and a quiet hope. The bazaar around them was alive and full of people, but for Ryan and Myra, this small corner of crimson tents had become a world all its own, a place where connection, trust, and longing could quietly grow. The morning air in the crimson-tented bazaar was filled with the usual scents of spices and freshly baked bread, but for Ryan, there was an unusual tension. The bazaar was bustling, yet he noticed wary glances and whispers as he walked through the crowded pathways. Something was different today. His thoughts kept returning to Myra, and he hoped she had arrived safely. He found her near a stall selling rare gemstones. Myra was examining a smooth, deep blue stone, turning it over in her hand with careful attention. She seemed calm on the surface, but Ryan noticed a slight tightness around her eyes, a subtle sign that she was aware of more than she let on. "Good morning," he said softly, approaching her. Myra looked up, offering a gentle smile. "Hello, Ryan," she said. "You arrived early." "I wanted to make sure I could see you before the day became too crowded," he replied. His eyes scanned the nearby tents, noting a few merchants who were watching them closely. Something about their presence made him uneasy. As they began to walk through the bazaar together, Ryan noticed that some traders gave Myra suspicious looks, whispering to one another. One merchant, an older man with a scarred face, called out to Ryan. "Be careful who you trust," he said in a low voice, nodding toward Myra. "Not everyone is as harmless as they seem." Ryan's heart beat faster. He turned to Myra, who had noticed nothing, her attention still focused on the gemstones. "Myra," he said gently, "do you know that some people here are wary of you?" She paused and looked at him, a small frown appearing on her delicate features. "I am aware," she admitted quietly. "It is not unusual. My presence is unusual. Some do not understand my purpose, and some do not trust outsiders. I expected this." Ryan's protective instincts surged. "I will not let anyone harm you," he said firmly. "I don't care who it is. I will keep you safe while you are here." Myra's expression softened, though there was still a shadow of worry in her eyes. "Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your concern. But I must be careful. I cannot abandon my duties, even for a moment." They continued their walk, moving through the winding corridors of tents, exploring quiet corners and hidden stalls. Ryan introduced Myra to a small tea stall tucked away behind crimson curtains, where the air smelled of warm spices and honey. They sat together, sipping tea and sharing stories. Myra laughed softly at Ryan's tales of human childhood adventures, and Ryan smiled at the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her own experiences. Despite the warmth between them, Ryan could not shake the feeling of unease. He noticed a few traders keeping a close watch on them, and the shadows seemed heavier than usual. The bazaar was lively, full of colors and sounds, but there was an undercurrent of tension that made him more alert. "Ryan," Myra said softly, sensing his concern. "Do not worry too much. I have faced more dangerous places than this. The bazaar is not truly threatening. It is only cautious. People fear what they do not understand." "I know," he replied, "but I cannot help feeling responsible. You are important to me, Myra. I want you to feel safe, even here." She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and gentle sadness. "I feel safe when I am with you," she admitted quietly. "That is why I value our time together. But we must both be careful. The world is not always as simple as these tents make it appear." Ryan nodded, determined. "We will be careful," he promised. "Together, we can handle whatever comes." For the rest of the morning, they explored more of the bazaar, finding hidden corners filled with rare fruits, small mechanical birds, and quiet music from a corner where an old musician played soft tunes. Myra's laughter and curiosity began to ease Ryan's tension, and he realized that despite the whispers and suspicious glances, their bond was growing stronger. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the red tents, Ryan and Myra returned to the small fountain they had discovered earlier. They sat side by side, watching the water ripple, sharing quiet smiles and small conversations. Even with the subtle danger surrounding them, they felt a growing sense of trust and connection. In that quiet moment, Ryan understood something important. The bazaar, the traders, and the world around them could be wary and cautious, but the connection he shared with Myra was real. It was strong enough to withstand suspicion and tension. And though challenges would come, he knew that together, they could face them, protecting each other while discovering the small joys that made life beautiful. The sun had begun to sink toward the horizon, painting the crimson-tinted bazaar in deep shades of red and gold. Ryan walked through the crowded pathways, the warm wind carrying the scents of spices, roasted nuts, and fresh bread. He spotted Myra near a small fountain, her silver hair catching the sunlight. She was arranging her belongings carefully, her eyes scanning the tents around them. "Ryan," she called softly when she noticed him. "I was just organizing some items I collected earlier." "I can help," Ryan offered immediately, moving closer. He noticed her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the subtle tension that had been growing since the morning. "It's easier together." Myra hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you. That would be helpful." They worked side by side, lifting small crates of spices and trinkets, arranging them neatly under a sheltered corner of the fountain. The chatter of the bazaar faded into the background as they focused on their shared task. There was a quiet rhythm to their movements, a silent understanding that made the work feel lighter. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept through the bazaar, rattling the tents and sending loose papers and small objects flying into the air. A stack of delicate fabrics began to topple, and Ryan reacted quickly. He grabbed Myra's hand, pulling her to a safer spot under a sturdier tent. Myra's eyes widened for a moment, but then she laughed softly, the sound a delicate melody amidst the chaos. "You are always so quick to act," she said, brushing a few stray threads from her clothing. Ryan smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I could not let you get hurt," he said simply. For a moment, they stood close, listening to the wind rustling the crimson tents above them. The bazaar continued around them, but in their small corner, the world felt quiet and safe. Myra's gaze met Ryan's, and there was a softness there he had not seen before, a mix of gratitude, trust, and something unspoken that hung in the air like the last rays of sunlight. "Ryan," Myra said softly, her voice almost a whisper, "thank you for being here. You make this place easier, brighter." Ryan felt his heart beat faster. "I feel the same, Myra," he said, his voice steady but filled with warmth. "When I am with you, everything feels calmer. You make the bazaar, this world, feel better." For a few moments, they simply stood there, letting the noise and chaos of the bazaar drift away. The wind had calmed, and the last of the scattered fabrics fluttered gently to the ground. Ryan and Myra shared a quiet smile, a silent acknowledgement of the bond growing between them. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, Myra stepped closer to Ryan. She rested her head lightly on his shoulder, her silver hair brushing against his arm. The gesture was simple, yet it carried a depth of trust and comfort that neither had expressed in words. Ryan felt a sense of peace wash over him, a quiet certainty that this moment was important, something to remember always. "You make me feel safe," Myra murmured, her voice soft and steady. "Even when the world is uncertain, being with you makes it easier." Ryan's hand moved gently to rest over hers. "And you make me feel alive," he said quietly. "Like there is something worth protecting in every moment we share." They remained in that small, safe corner of the bazaar as the sun disappeared behind the crimson tents, turning the sky into shades of orange, pink, and violet. Around them, merchants packed up their stalls, children ran home, and travelers hurried through the last hours of the day. Yet for Ryan and Myra, the moment was theirs alone, a pause in time where worries, duties, and suspicion seemed to vanish. As the first stars appeared in the desert sky, Myra lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting Ryan's. There was a quiet understanding between them, a recognition that their bond had grown stronger through small gestures, shared laughter, and moments of trust. They did not need to speak, their hearts understood each other perfectly. Finally, Ryan smiled and said, "We will face whatever comes, Myra. Together." Myra returned his smile, a gentle curve of her lips that spoke of hope, trust, and the quiet joy of companionship. "Together," she agreed. And in that shared promise, amidst the glowing tents and the soft desert night, they felt a connection that went beyond words, a bond built on trust, care, and the quiet strength of two hearts finding each other in a vast and bustling world. The crimson-tented bazaar was quieter than usual as evening settled over the desert. The last rays of sunlight painted the red tents in deep shades of orange and gold, and a soft breeze carried the scent of spices and warm bread through the winding paths. Ryan walked alongside Myra, their steps slow and unhurried. The day had been long but full of small joys, shared laughter, quiet discoveries, and moments that neither of them wanted to end. "Ryan," Myra said softly, glancing up at him, "I have been thinking. I was supposed to continue my travels tomorrow, but I feel like I am not ready to leave just yet." Ryan's heart lifted. "You mean, you want to stay?" he asked gently, careful not to seem too eager. Myra nodded. "Yes. There is so much more I want to see here, so many moments I want to share with you. This place, the bazaar, and you. I do not want to leave yet." Ryan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "Then we will explore it together," he said. "We can see every hidden corner, taste every sweet, watch every sunset. You will not be alone, Myra." Her silver hair shimmered in the fading light, and her eyes reflected both relief and happiness. For the first time since they met, she allowed herself to relax completely, letting go of the careful caution that had always accompanied her presence. They wandered deeper into the bazaar, hand in hand, discovering corners they had not seen before. A small stall sold tiny glass animals that glowed softly under the lantern light. Myra picked up a delicate fox, holding it carefully as if it were alive. Ryan picked up a small bird from the same stall and offered it to her. They laughed together at how perfect their little collection seemed, enjoying the simple joy of discovery. Next, they found a quiet music corner where an old musician played soft melodies on a strange stringed instrument. Myra closed her eyes, letting the gentle notes wash over her. Ryan watched her face, noticing the peace and happiness that shone there. He realized then that this was the moment they had been waiting for, a time when the world seemed still, and only they existed. As night fell, the bazaar became a tapestry of glowing lanterns and shadowed tents. They reached the fountain they had discovered on their first walk together. The water reflected the warm colors of the lights, rippling gently in the evening breeze. Ryan and Myra sat on the stone edge, shoulders touching lightly. "I am glad we met, Ryan," Myra said quietly, her voice almost lost among the soft murmurs of the bazaar. "I did not expect to find someone who understands, who notices what is important. You make this world feel brighter, safer, and more beautiful." Ryan's hand found hers, and he held it gently. "And you make me feel alive, Myra," he said softly. "I did not know that a place, or a moment, could feel this full of life until I met you. I want to share every moment I can with you." Myra smiled, leaning closer so that their shoulders touched more fully. "Then we will share them," she said. "No matter what comes, we will face it together. I want to stay here, with you, and see what each day brings." Ryan's heart swelled with quiet happiness. "Together," he said firmly, echoing her words. Whatever comes, we face it together. They sat in silence for a while, watching the lanterns sway gently in the breeze, the fountain rippling softly, and the last visitors moving through the bazaar. Around them, the tents glowed warmly, and the desert night stretched endlessly beyond the walls of red fabric. Yet in their small corner, the world felt safe and still, a perfect place where they could simply be themselves. Myra leaned her head lightly on Ryan's shoulder, and he rested his cheek against her hair. It was a quiet, gentle closeness, yet it carried a depth of feeling neither of them had expressed before. There was trust, comfort, and the simple joy of two hearts finding each other in a world full of colors, sounds, and endless possibilities. As the first stars appeared in the desert sky, they rose from the fountain together, still holding hands. They walked slowly through the bazaar, pausing to admire small trinkets, laugh at little discoveries, and savor the warmth of each other's presence. Every step was shared, every glance exchanged, and every smile reflected the quiet happiness that had grown between them. Finally, as the bazaar began to close and the desert night settled in, Ryan and Myra paused beneath the largest crimson tent. They looked around, taking in the glow of lanterns, the gentle hum of distant conversations, and the warm light reflecting off the sand. In that moment, they understood something simple yet profound: the bazaar, the world, and their journeys were all better because they had found each other. And in that quiet corner of the crimson-tented bazaar, two hearts, once strangers, now shared a bond filled with trust, care, and the promise of countless moments together, longing fulfilled, and hope for every tomorrow.